Multiple tropical systems developing across northern Australia, a coral sea low forming next week, heavy rainfall for far north Queensland, and a powerful cyclone tracking towards the West Australian coast. Let's break down what's happening and what you need to know. Right now, conditions across tropical Australia are active. The monsoon trough is establishing itself, and we've got several areas of concern developing simultaneously. If you are in Queensland, the Northern Territory, or Western Australia, this update is for you. Starting with what's immediately offshore. We've got tropical low 14U positioned near New Caledonia. This system S been sitting out in the Coral Sea for a couple of weeks now, and forecast models had some fairly aggressive solutions taking it towards the Capricornia coast. That S not happening. The system S tracking south towards what we call the graveyard, where tropical cyclones at this time of year get torn apart by the jet stream. It may develop into a cyclone near New Caledonia over the next 2 to 3 days, but it poses no threat to the Australian mainland. The more relevant system for Queensland is what's developing in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and this is where we need to pay attention. Over the next 36 to 48 hours, we're expecting significant enhancement of shower and thunderstorm activity right across the Gulf of Carpentaria and onto the western side of Cape York Peninsula. The monsoon trough is setting itself up somewhere between Sunday night and early Monday morning. When that establishes, we'll have southeasterly winds clashing with southwesterly flow, creating convergent zones, particularly along the Cassowary Coast. Sunday night through Tuesday, expect periods of heavy rainfall and thunderstorms, not continuous, but on and off heavy activity. The Daintree rainforest region and areas south of Waipa will be in the firing line. Now, development of this low pressure system is expected to be slow, very similar to how Tropical Cyclone Koji developed last week. That system took days to properly organise. What we're re-looking at from Monday or Tuesday onwards is a weak, broad, low-pressure system, messy, disorganised, large area of rotation but not tightly wound. And there's a reason for that sluggish development. Tropical low 14U out near New Caledonia, even though it's well offshore, is close enough to interfere. Tropical cyclones don T like interacting with each other. When two systems are fiddling around with each other, S, troughs and inflow features, organisation suffers. This Gulf system will struggle as a result. The low is expected to be monsoonal in nature. Lots of moisture feeding in, particularly on the northern and eastern sides. Heavy rainfall, yes. But tight, well-organised structure? Unlikely, at least initially. Forecast models track this system offshore from Cape York Peninsula into the Coral Sea by the end of next week. Likely between Thursday the 22nd and Friday the 23rd of January. Once it moves offshore, the very heavy rainfall across Cape York should ease. The system will then be far enough from land to potentially organise without land interaction dragging it down, but it also one to be funneling showers and thunderstorms ashore in the same prevalent way. From Thursday or Friday onwards, we're talking about less shower and thunderstorm activity across northern Queensland compared to what we'll see early in the week. Now, here's the question many of you are asking. Will this system come back towards the coast as a tropical cyclone? Right now, a landfall as a tropical cyclone is not expected in the next 5 or 6 days. Chances do increase slightly after Friday due to forecast model uncertainty at that range, but it's not something to worry about at this stage. We need to see where this tropical low actually develops in the Gulf and how far offshore into the Coral Sea it tracks before we start commenting on landfall chances around Townsville or further south towards Mackay. Let's be clear, we're in cyclone season. That background chance is always there. I'll always be honest about that. But if I were in your situation along the Queensland coast, I would not be concerned about this system. Monitor the forecast every couple of days. Check for changes, but don't stress. I really don't see how this becomes a concern for the Queensland coastline before Australia Day. Even if it does develop close enough to threaten Queensland as a tropical cyclone, it won't to be strong. Too much land interaction. The system would need to emerge offshore around the Cardwell area to come ashore as a cyclone. This system will shape up to be rainfall to parts of Cape York
built roads and flood-prone locations. As the system emerges into the Coral Sea, brief periods of heavy rainfall will swing into the backside of the system. The Cardwell area and locations further north up to Lockhart River could see heavier falls, but overall I'm not expecting totals to exceed 200 millimetres across the Cassowary Coast. 300 millimetres is an absolute ceiling for locations south around Townsville, Burdekin and into the central Queensland coast. You'd need the tropical low to really approach the coastline for rainfall to become a problem. I don't see that happening. This low isn't coming close enough or strong enough at this point. Of course that could change, but right now multiple signals point to this system not being much of a concern for Queensland. Watch the situation closely. A tropical low is likely. A weak tropical cyclone, Category 1 status, is still possible. Anything above Category 3 is not supported by any forecast models right now, and it's looking pretty unlikely. Forecast models are getting really good at the 7 to 10 day period. That is why we've been accurate on these long-range predictions. So trust the data we're seeing right now. If you're in Brisbane, southeast Queensland, or anywhere south of Townsville, this system is not your concern. The heat and humidity you've been dealing with, and that is a different story. Brisbane hit 38 degrees this harbour, with humidity making it feel even worse. Absolutely vile conditions. That warm, sticky air mass has been parked over southeast Queensland all week. Lately in surrounding areas called a severe storm yesterday. Plenty of power outages. Those storms formed in the heat and instability. We'll likely see more of that pattern over the next few days before conditions finally settle. The humidity has been off the charts. Many of you have commented on how unpleasant it's been. And you're right, this hasn't been a typical wet season for Brisbane. Dry as summer many have seen. Bureau keeps forecasting storms to break the heat, but they will be hit and miss. Lots of cloud build up, light drizzle, then nothing. That pattern should improve slightly early next week as the polar weather regime shifts, but don't expect dramatic relief just yet. Now let's shift focus to the Northern Territory and what is happening in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. We've got the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Koji now positioned in the Gulf. This system is beginning to develop again with some fairly intense convection, those showers and thunderstorms firing up, but there's a problem: wind shear. Upper level winds blowing out of the northeast are ripping this system apart. When you've got high wind shear, tropical cyclones struggle to organise. The clouds look grainy and streaky like shredded cheese. That's a telltale sign that wind shear is very high. For thunderstorms, wind shear between 30 and 40 knots is excellent. Anything above 40 knots is favourable for severe storms. But for tropical cyclones, it's the complete opposite. Those thunderstorms need to rotate around a common centre. If winds are pushing and squishing that centre, the system can disorganise. Tropical cyclones struggle to intensify.
The sweet spot for tropical cyclone development is about 5 to 15 knots of wind shear, enough to generate good outflow but not enough to disrupt the core. Right now, wind shear values are much higher than that, and they are expected to remain high for the next few days. Over the next 72 to 96 hours, the next 3 or 4 days, we are expecting lots of heavy shower and thunderstorm activity through the top end of the Northern Territory. Darwin, the Tiwi Islands and the top end of Western Australia will all see significant rainfall. The bulk of the really heavy stuff is forecast to remain offshore, particularly to the western side of this developing cyclone. That wind shear displacing the heaviest showers and storms to the west means Darwin won't cop the absolute worst of it. Darwin will see heavy showers and thunderstorms, lots of rain band activity, but the truly heavy falls should stay offshore. That puts the Kimberley coastline in the hot seat for heavy rainfall. Darwin, I don't see more than about 250 millimetres coming through. Some minor flooding here and there, but the top end is generally pretty good at handling significant rainfall. The main concern will be drains if we see really intense bursts, and some communities towards Wyndham or Coonawarra, particularly if dirt road access gets cut off due to flash flooding. Major forecast models are divided on the exact track, but it looks like this system will hug the coastline for a bit before heading out into the Indian Ocean, where conditions are far more favourable for development. And this is where things get serious for Western Australia. If this system gets west of the Kimberley coast and out into open water, conditions are extremely favourable for significant intensification. We're talking about sea surface temperatures well above 27 degrees Celsius, low wind shear, good outflow channels. If a tropical cyclone can exist out there for about 2.5 to 3 days, I have no doubt it'll reach severe tropical cyclone status. The system is then expected to make a turn sometime around Friday as a weak low-pressure system approaches Western Australia from the southwest, pushing the cyclone back towards the coast. For areas between Exmouth up to Coonanorra, including Broome, Karratha, Port Hedland, Dampier and Onslow, you need to be watching this situation very closely. You could be looking at a tropical cyclone coming through between the 22nd and the 25th of January. The signals are getting pretty strong now. This is something we need to watch carefully because if it takes aim at the West Australian coast, it's going to be strong. Potentially category 3 or 4. There are still discrepancies between forecast models. The European model had several consecutive runs taking this system out into the Indian Ocean and then crashing it towards the Port Hedland area. Now it is showing the system hugging the coastline more. That's not a massive variation, but even the smallest wobble closer to the coast will prevent this cyclone from intensifying as quickly as we expect. If it hugs the Western Australia coastline, it'll be weaker. Better for WA in terms of intensity, but you will still see very heavy rainfall into the Kimberley region regardless. Areas north of Coonanorra across to the Mitchell Plateau, accumulations of 200 to 400 millimetres throughout next week as the system passes north of the Kimberley coast. For the Pilbara coast, make sure your seasonal preparations are ready. Generally speaking, you should be ready for tropical cyclones anyway. February, March and April are the big months for cyclone activity offshore from Western Australia. Make sure you're re-prepared. Looking at tropical storm strike probability, the chance of a tropical storm or cyclone passing within 300 kilometres of any point between the 19th and 26th of January, we've got 2 distinct areas. Tropical low 14U down near New Caledonia, which is no threat, and the much higher probability area off Western Australia, which is tropical low 16U, the remnants of Koji. Generally speaking, the most conducive conditions lie further offshore, and ensemble forecast models, which are usually very accurate, are calling for that offshore track. But things can change. We'll be monitoring closely. There's also a weak signal developing in the Gulf of Carpentaria and out in the Coral Sea for next week. The Queensland system we discussed earlier, something may develop into the Gulf and we may see a tropical low or cyclone in the Coral Sea. We can rule those possibilities out. Worth monitoring, but not worth worrying about at this stage. One more thing worth mentioning, Google Weather Lab has recently launched AI-based forecast models, and they're re-showing impressive accuracy. These models predicted tropical cyclone Koji about 10 days out to within 50 kilometres. That is remarkable precision for that range. The system uses ensemble forecasting, which is essentially blending multiple forecast runs together to create a consensus solution. When you see dots close together on the forecast, that's high certainty. When they spread out, that is uncertainty increasing. Right now, those models show good clustering for the Western Australia system, decent clustering for the Coral Sea development, and then spreading uncertainty beyond the 8 or 9 day mark. That is normal. Forecast confidence decreases with time. But the fact that we're re-seeing consistent signals for both the WA cyclone and the Queensland Coral Sea low at the 7 to 10 day range gives us confidence in the overall pattern. So let's summarise what you need to know. Queensland, particularly Far North Queensland and Cape York Peninsula, you are looking at enhanced shower and thunderstorm activity from Sunday night through the middle of next week. Heavy rainfall at times, particularly on the western side of Cape York, 150 to 250 millimetres widespread, pockets to 400 millimetres. A tropical low will develop in the Gulf of Carpentaria early next week, likely moving offshore into the Coral Sea by Thursday or Friday. Landfall as a tropical cyclone is not expected, and even if the system approaches the coast, it won't be strong due to land interaction. Monitor the forecast, but don't stress. Northern Territory, Darwin and the top end, you re-in for heavy showers and thunderstorms over the next 3 to 4 days as the remnants of Koji reorganise in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. Expect 100 to 250 millimetres, possibly localised higher totals. Some minor flooding possible. Watch for road closures. The system should then track west into the Indian Ocean, Western Australia, Kimberley and Pilbara coasts. This is your main concern. A tropical cyclone is likely to develop offshore next week and could approach the coast between the 22nd and 25th of January. If it tracks far enough offshore before turning back towards land, it could be a severe tropical cyclone, category 3 or 4. Make sure your preparations are in order. Secure loose items, stock up on essentials, know your cyclone plan. This is a serious developing situation. For those in southeast Queensland dealing with the heat and humidity, conditions should improve slightly early next week, but don't expect dramatic relief. The pattern S been frustrating, lots of cloud and promise with little payoff. That S the nature of this setup. I know many of you remember significant cyclones. Cyclone Tracy, Christmas Eve 1974, winds up to 217 kilometres per hour, Darwin destroyed. Cyclone Yasi in 2011, category 5, devastating impact across North Queensland. Cyclone Larry in 2006. The Western Australia system has potential to be significant, but we're not talking Tracy or Yasi levels. Category 3 or 4 is serious, don't get me wrong, but at S manageable if you re-prepared. The key is preparation without panic. You've dealt with cyclones before. You know what to do. Just make sure you re-ready. Keep monitoring the Bureau of Meteorology for official warnings. Check forecasts daily. If you in a cyclone-prone area, now S the time to review your plan. Where will you shelter? Do you have enough water, food, batteries? Is your property secure? For those with livestock or in remote areas, make sure you've got contingencies in place. If dirt roads are your only access and heavy rain is forecast, consider whether you need supplies before conditions deteriorate. This is shaping up to be an active period across northern Australia. Multiple systems, heavy rainfall and at least one potentially significant cyclone. Stay informed, stay prepared and don't take unnecessary risks. That's the situation as it stands. I'll continue monitoring these systems closely and provide updates as conditions develop. If anything changes significantly, you'll hear about it.